A child's death that has haunted the town of Pekin for the past year.
On November 18th, 13-year-old Robert Bee was reported as a runaway by his mother.
However, we have been in touch with the Illinois State Police and are in the process of entering information of a missing or endangered person advisory.
And what happened to Robert Bee brought people in Pekin out to search for answers themselves weekend after weekend. Thousands of leads poured into the Pekin Police Department.
The search for the teenager coming to a halt on a hot July day when his skeletal remains were found.
Shit, someone opened the door. Absolute shit. It's frustrating. It looks like there's blinds against the window. So angry. I wonder if she's gonna try the side door. Yeah, she is. That's my girl. Get it, Ash. See you. I can kind of see you there. A little head in there, girlfriend.
I think one thing that I need to make apparently clear here is that when Kendra came forward with what she believed happened that night to Bonzai, you know, we're still considering that a theory that we have to look into. So although I feel like she gave us some very good information and the timeline fits, we do still need to talk to each of the people in the house to check the validity of that. You know, and especially when it comes to Jamie, Nick, Kira, and Randy, she does talk about that they were in the house, but what exactly does that mean? You know, does she believe that they were in the house when Bonzai was actually murdered, witnessing it? Is she saying that they were living in the house at the time? Is she saying they were in the house but a different part of the house and might not have known what was happening? So I think that with any of the stories that she told, I think it's really important to, you know, give us a minute to try to talk to each of them to figure out what sort of validity this story has, if they were present, if they were just living in the house at the time. I think that we really need to kind of give each person a chance to tell their side of what they know, if they know anything, and if they believe this theory is valid. So I just really want, just because it's a theory that fits with the timeline and that Kendra was brave enough to come forward with what she believed happened, we still need to look into that and talk to each and every person. So I just ask everyone that you really give us a chance to do that so that we can figure out if there was involvement and what parts of this theory are accurate. After Kendra came forward with her theory, one of the things I thought was the most important was to start trying to talk to every name, every person she mentioned that might have been in the house or somehow affiliated with the house at the time. So one of the very first people I reached out to was Jamie, Josh's brother. He did not respond and he did not get back to me, so I still have not had a chance to speak with him. I think the next major player who I really wanted to speak to was Teresa Vancil, so I started Facebook messaging her to see if I could get her to talk to me. I'll just go through me and Teresa Vancil's messages.
Oh, this will be interesting.
Yeah, so on January 1st, I wrote her. And I wrote, and I had tried to reach out to Jamie, who is Josh's brother initially. So I was kind of I was like reaching out to someone and then I'd give it a week and then I'd reach out to another person and then I gave it a week. And I was doing this with each person who was in the house just to see if one of them would come forward. So I wrote to Terry, I need to talk to you about what happened to Bonzai. I already know, so I just want to talk with you so we can figure out how to bring this to light. I wish I was writing with better news, but it's time to come forward. So I was a little nervous when I wrote that because even though it's not like I know you were in the house,
It's kind of a we'll call it a forward stance,
Right.
not an aggressive stance.
Exactly.
But you're just like, honestly, I know what you know, and we both know that it's bad that you haven't said anything yet.
Right, but one thing I underestimated when the second person came forward, whose name I don't want to use, it was from one of the Facebook groups, which obviously the Facebook groups have brought us a lot of very healthy and quality information, but at the same time, in those Facebook groups, there's also a lot of speculation and hearsay because they're just trying to work things out. So they're just kind of talking things out and saying it out loud. And so it was one of these people from the Facebook group who had reached out about it. So I just didn't give it much gravity, but I really should have thought about that for a moment because she from the get-go had said that Teresa had gone to the cops. It's just I wasn't connecting some of the dots here between the Joshes and stuff. Terry writes back to me and she says he was murdered. And then she said, and the cops know who. And then she wrote, then they obviously don't give a fuck. So I wrote, I care. I want to hear what you have to say. I have the resources to make sure you are heard. I'd love to speak with you, and I think you might be the key to it. I 100% do not mind speaking off the record, no cameras, no record, no exposure. This can remain 100% anonymous. I just need to make sure I'm headed in the correct direction, and I believe you can help me. Please understand, I talk to a lot of people that the public never know about. I speak to people who risk their jobs, marriages, pensions, and possibly their lives. So I take keeping these people private very seriously. I would do the same for you. And she wrote, I'm not afraid to speak on camera. So I said,
fun. That'll be like the most tense moment I feel like I've had in this case, other than the first time we showed up at Lisa's.
Yeah. And so then I wrote, amazing. And then she wrote, when a person's telling the truth, there's no worries.
Wow.
So I mean, now here's the thing. I'm trying not to get too excited because who knows? I talked to her and she's like, no, I wasn't in the house that night. I just heard this. And then it's, it could be that. Or it could be I was in the house. Or it could be I wasn't in the house, but I know what happened and I told the cops. So the second person who came forward about this, who had told me about Teresa, I reached out to her like 2 weeks ago because I was like, I looked back at the messages and of course they make no sense because some people it's really hard to track their messaging. So I looked back and then was able to understand that they were trying to tell me this story, but they're also trying to tell me 3 other stories at the same time. So it got very confounding. And the fact that Josh McCleary's name is so close to Josh McCreary's name that it was never connecting, that it was 2 different people. And so I asked her, the second person who came forward, did anyone ever go to the cops about this? Because I feel like the other 2 people who have come forward, Kendra, who's been willing to be on camera, had not gone to the cops. And then this other person who came forward didn't even want me to share who they were, so it definitely has not gone to the cops.
Yeah.
So I asked this lady if Teresa had gone to the cops, and she said she did, but the cops seemed just as when she said it was Josh McCreary, the cops corrected her and said McCleary, and that's all she knew. So did Teresa keep pushing it? And obviously what we've noticed on some of the people we've communicated with, now I haven't talked to Teresa on the phone, but some of them are very hard to track and they're not very good about staying on track of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it seems like if you were in the house or you knew what happened, you could have tracked that pretty easily, but I mean, we know that some of the things we have to keep going back and being like, hold on, what were you saying about that? Go back to that, stay on this line of thinking for me with me for a moment. So I'm just wondering, how she is. Is she sober and healthy or is she not? That's what I'm curious about. Just because I don't know her. I don't know anything about her. So she could be a mess. She could have her life perfectly put together. The fact that she says he was murdered and the cops know piqued my interest a lot. Because that to me is saying either she knows or she was there. Hey everyone, sorry to break into the episode like this, but I just wanted to come on real quick and remind you to subscribe, www.ashes2ashtv.com. There are a bunch of perks you get with subscribing, which includes getting the episodes either 3 or 7 days early, depending on what level you subscribe at. We also have merchandise coming out this week. You do get discounts on merchandise. And then there's also uncut interviews. Last week we released Kira's, who is Stephanie's daughter's, uncut interview. And this week we're releasing Stephanie's uncut interview, both part 1 and part 2. So if you kind of want to see what we deal with behind the scenes or uncut interviews, we will be releasing those. We'll try to do that on a weekly basis to release a new uncut interview. Please understand it always feels weird talking about subscriptions or merchandise when we're dealing with such sensitive content, and that is not lost on me. But please understand, we don't make money on the show. The subscription and the merchandise, all that money just goes back into us being able to travel and try to solve these cases. So the show will always be free, so really the subscriptions are just meant for people who want to help or have the ability to help. So if you just want to watch the show and kind of get involved in these cases, that's awesome too. So there is no pressure to subscribe, but if you can, it does help us out quite a bit. So we really appreciate everyone who has gotten on board with that the first month here. Also, within the next 2 weeks here, we are starting a private Facebook group for subscribers. Is what that will allow is them to have a little bit easier of access to our crew. And then we'll also do some events through there like Q&As, Facebook Lives. So that's another thing. If you want to be involved in some of that stuff, I would definitely recommend subscribing so that you can really delve into the case with us. Thanks for listening, and back to the show. Here, I'm going to read the message just so you can see, so you understand even where I was coming from here. So through all this, I also received a tip about what might have happened to the body after Bonzai was killed. And this was completely separate. The person really only could give me information about what happened after Bonzai was killed and what happened to his body. So when this tip came in, it was an anonymous tip, but I still go down those roads to check the validity of an anonymous tip. So I went to the person who was potentially involved in what happened after, and I actually spoke to them to get their take on what had happened to the body after Bonzai was killed. This is me writing to him. I am so happy you friend requested me. I was hoping I could chat with you. Also, we can chat off the record and 100% anonymous. Please let me know if we can set something up. And then I gave him my phone number. And he said, question mark, question mark, question mark. Sorry, you might have me confused with someone else, LOL. I know it's odd that I want to speak to you, but I have a few questions. If you have some time, I'm sure you might also be confused as to why I said I could keep you anonymous. And he writes, wow, now I'm curious and a little confused. I was going to reach out to you tomorrow, but then you popped up with a friend request. I know this is a lot to process, but please understand how seriously I take what I'm doing here, so I like to make sure I have my facts straight. I know it seems odd, and I know you might not be able to add anything, but I'd really like to chat with you. Your name has actually come up too, not that you had anything to do with Bonzai's death, obviously, but did Josh ever ask you to hold on to any of his stuff after Bonzai died? Maybe it was kept in your garage. So then he says, never did he ask me to hold anything. Now, obviously, I heard this from an anonymous source, and then I have to listen to what this person has to say, and then I decide where to take the investigation from there. Just because someone says that's not what happened doesn't mean I immediately believe them. But what I do is I try to talk to them openly and honestly to see if they can give me any information or have anything that might be useful. So then I wrote, do you know if Josh was or is doing meth, or have you suspected this? Do you know where Josh was staying when Bonzai disappeared? Because I feel like I'm going to lose him, so now I thought I'd just ask the questions I want to ask.
Start asking questions until he...
Yeah. Did you ever see Josh with the red cooler? Please know what I'm about to say is just something I've heard, which does not make it fact, but let me know if this rings a bell or if it's not true. We have a person who claims that they witnessed you and Josh discussing something of Josh's in your garage. The witness said they overheard you say to Josh, you need to get that cooler out of the garage, it's starting to stink. The witness said you had no idea what was in the cooler, but you wanted it out of your garage. He says, wow, this is about as false as can be, and that's a lot to swallow there. Sounds like someone has involved me into this also. And so I wrote, yeah, I know it's a lot to take in, that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, to see your thoughts. It's also good to know that Josh did not hide anything in your garage without you knowing. I'm sorry if this was shocking, but I like to check everything I'm told to see if there is any truth to it. This is not always easy for me, but I feel like I have to talk about these things to see if there's any truth to the things I'm being told. Only one of the 3 people who came forward said the thing about your garage. Their stories all match up, however, except for your name being mentioned. The story got my attention because it is 3 very different people who came forward, so I feel like I have to fully investigate its validity. Please let me know your thoughts, and my apologies if this is upsetting. Thank you for speaking with me about this. So now I haven't heard back. So I paused for a moment. So I do want to send him a message eventually, but I'm just not sure what that should look like, you know?
I mean, that's kind of crazy, especially because even if the cooler thing is true, given the conversation and how it started, I wouldn't admit to that. I would have struggled to admit to that to you.
Well, right. I mean, he doesn't know me. If it's accurate that he just friend requested me because I popped up on his timeline, now his day went from like average day to what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I completely understand if he was like, this is a lot to process, and started shutting down on me. So one thing I think it's really important that everyone understand is we do this show so that we can potentially solve a case. Our goal is, we can't fix what's happened to somebody already or a past victim, but our hope is to stop somebody from victimizing another person. And really the only way to do that is to locate the suspects in some of these cases so that we can hopefully get the cops to listen to us so that the people can be pulled off the street so they can't hurt someone else. So I went to the cops immediately with Kendra's theory, I would say within 14 days of talking to Kendra. Now, we talked to Kendra back in December of 2019, and I went to and emailed Chief Dossey about 2 weeks later, and here's what my email said. Chief Dossey, I hope you are having a nice week and preparing for the upcoming holidays. I just wanted to touch base with you about a few things that I have questions about. I obviously understand that you might be unable to assist me, but it never hurts to ask. I have received a tip, a house located at 1400 Herget in Pekin. I've only begun looking into it. Honestly, much like I'm sure you've experienced, a lot of tips are speculation, so they are hard to sink your teeth into. This one, however, was the first time I've had pause throughout my search for answers, and I've heard a lot of things. You probably already received this tip, and I'm not bringing anything to light here, but I wanted to at the very least touch base with you. I would never withhold something I thought could be real. Up to this point, I have been pretty positive that what I've received information-wise were tips that you've already gotten and combed through, so I have avoided being one more person to be overwhelming the police department with speculation. This tip, however, made sense to me and fit with the evidence that we've been able to confirm. So if you already have it, you don't need to respond to this thought. If you don't, however, I'm happy to speak with you if you think I can add value to your investigation. Obviously, we can talk about all of this off the record. I'm trying to find out who killed Bonzai and not put a black stain on the police department, but I still need to ask questions at times. We are obviously moving fast and releasing episodes, so the sooner we can chat, the better. Thank you for everything. I have the utmost respect for you and your team, and you have an awesome holiday season if we do not have the opportunity to chat. Ash. So a couple things about this email. First of all, I said 1400 Herget in the email. The address is actually 1400 Heilman. So I think the reason I was confused about the address is there's 3 streets that converge right there. So I thought the address was actually on Herget and it was on Heilman. Either way, it didn't matter. The cops never responded to me. I was not sure they got the email. I didn't get a response. I was kind of surprised because I felt like I was coming forward with a potentially new theory. So I was surprised that they didn't respond to me, but it's still not going to stop me from bringing them information. It just kind of surprised me that they weren't interested in the information that I had already.
Hello.
Hey Lisa, it's Ash. How are you doing?
Okay, I guess.
All right. Is it still a good time to talk or?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, I know that you wanted to do a call to kind of just clarify things, but I mean, so far nobody has said that you were at the house or helped dispose of the body after the fact. No one has put your name into the mix.
My cousin put a post on Facebook, and that Teresa lady goes on there and puts her 2 cents in.
Yeah.
I guess she saying that Kendra is lying, that she's a drug addict, and my cousin asked me, she goes, do you think she's lying? I said, I don't. I said, because she's not going to put her life in danger for lies.
I feel like she has jeopardized her entire existence, so I do think that you're probably pretty right there. I think that, and she didn't come out right away. It wasn't like she thought about it for weeks if she should even talk to me. So it wasn't like she was just trying to get on camera, or she would have just agreed. Like it was.
And I told my cousin, I said it would be a different story. If there's an old board, you would think she was coming forward for money, but that's not the case. There is no reward. There's nothing.
No, and she's gotten nothing from us. I would never give someone money, so there's no incentive for her to come forward. I don't think. I can't fathom what she would think that would be. And any other time I've tried to get her back on camera, she's refused. So it's not like she's just hungry to be on camera.
No, now she's fearful.
Yes, no, she's very scared. I got messages from her yesterday, so.
I said it would have been a different story. I said, but when they checked the house, it was exactly how she said it was.
Yeah.
But she wasn't lying, and you could tell because if the house is the way she said.
Is mine even going? Okay, so here's the stairs.
Okay, so it is right by the door.
Right? So that's accurate. Okay. Let me get a light on. Yeah, I mean, these are very fucking treacherous. So do you want to, on this call, then kind of clarify?
I didn't even know where the house was at.
Yeah, so you had never been in 1400 Heilman before, as far as you know?
No.
Okay.
I didn't even know where the house was at. Because she goes, it's about a block from your house. I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, this address. I said, I don't know where that's at.
So were you surprised at how close the house was to your house?
I was really surprised.
Did you ever know Teresa Vancil, like know her personally?
No.
Had you known of her in the neighborhood? Like, had you even heard her name ever, or you had never even heard of her?
I never heard her name, didn't know who she was.
So that's not someone you even knew about until now, or was that the first time you heard her name was when you saw her episode?
Yeah, that was the first time I heard her name.
Wow, okay. And then what about, I know you said that you knew Jonathan Tandy very mildly. Can you talk about what your connection to him was?
He used to hang out with Bonzai. Everybody kept saying he was 18, and I'd always ask him, well, if you're 18, why do you want to hang out with a 13-year-old for?
Yeah.
Because, it just seemed weird.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty big age difference.
Because he brought him home to our house one day and asked if he could stay the night. And Ed knew that Jonathan had a meth problem, and I said, if he's on that stuff, I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want him at my house on that stuff. I said, he better be off of that stuff. And I know about it, that he's off of it before he can even stay at my house.
Absolutely.
He had hung out with me in Savannah, and we both thought he was 18 because he told us he was 18.
How many interactions would you say that you saw that Bonzai had with Jonathan Tandy that you know of? Do you think it was like 5 or 10 or 100?
It's probably about 5.
Do you think that there was ever any chance that Bonzai was selling drugs or had drugs from any of these guys?
I don't think so, because the only money he ever got is when I would give him his allowance every month.
Okay, so you never saw him with like extra cash or something along those
No.
lines? Did you ever know of Randy Seidel, one of the guys that Kendra mentions in episode 12?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so that was the first time you heard that name, was when you watched the episode?
Yeah, the names are, me watching it was the first time I heard all the names except Jonathan's.
Okay.
I even pulled up their Facebook page to look, and I'm like, I don't know these people.
Okay, so
they're adults. Why they thought it was okay for Bonzai to be there?
Yeah, no, that's really bizarre. So did you ever know who Jerry Birch was, the gentleman who was renting 1400 Heilman at the time? No, so you'd never heard of him either?
No, I didn't know nobody.
What about Kira?
I don't even know who she is.
Okay. Had you even ever heard McCreary's name? Like, did you even know of him as someone who lived in that neighborhood?
No.
No, so again, that was the first time you even heard his name?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I had no clue. I didn't realize until I was pulling them up on Facebook. I'm like, I don't know these people. I'm like, how do they go unnoticed in the neighborhood and no one talks about them?
Crazy the amount of people.
This ain't the first time this story came out. It came out like 3 years ago when.
Okay.
And she goes, I was told he was held in a house until they disposed of him. I was told that they pushed him down the stairs and he broke his neck. And we thought she was crazy. Everybody, even the police department, said she was crazy because she was a meth addict.
Yeah, and has a record herself, so I'm sure it was hard
and
to
has a record herself.
Yeah.
So everybody dismissed it and said that she was just crazy and no one believed it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Kendra comes forward and it's like, holy shit. This ain't the first time that this theory, the story's been out there.
Well, I even heard it almost right off the bat. It's just I thought they were talking about the young man who was kind of living with you at the time because the names are so similar. So when I first heard this theory, I didn't put too much credence behind it because, of course, some of the people were a little bit sketchy themselves. And then obviously I confused it with the other name. So when I figured out that that's not who they were talking about, it really kind of took me by surprise.
I just don't understand why the tape has never been tested.
So this is my understanding, and this is from a source, so I don't know, but the source is a higher up authority figure, so I do believe that it's accurate, but I have not been able to confirm it. But they did say the duct tape is in the Morton crime lab, and they don't test the DNA on it until they have a viable suspect. So my hope is that now that this is coming out, maybe they're making some traction to get the DNA tested on it. So we'll see what happens there.
When he went missing, I was the first one they did DNA on.
Right, so the cops actually tested your DNA.
Yeah.
And did they do that? They did that right after he went missing, not right after his body was found?
Yeah, it went right after he went missing because when I guess they had found him, they needed to compare my DNA and his dad's DNA to find out if it was him.
Okay.
And that's how we found out it was him, because our DNA matched.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else for the next episode that you want people to know or want to say?
I just want people to come forward. Not for me, but for my son.
Yeah.
He deserves that.
He totally does, 100%.
He deserves that.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely. Wow.
Spiderweb? Massive
wow.
spiderweb?
Is there a deep freeze?
Did Kendra really sleep down here?
I guess.
So many spider webs. Oh, there's a bathroom. Oh my god.
Wow. We can get out that door too, unless you want to go.
No, go look. I don't think you want to go out that door.
Okay.
Oh Lord.